Right from his debut, Christian Pulisic instantly won over Milan fans.
Christian? Oh my god, what a goal!
Since then, on the field, he has consistently delivered. But there seem to be some inconsistencies in the stories around his future at the club. And that's what we're going to clarify in today's video. And we're going to talk about if Pulisic stays with Milan, how is the new coach and Christian's fourth coach in 3 seasons, Max Allegri, plans to use him. So simply put, especially after the departure of Tijani Reinders to Manchester City, Christian Pulisic is the best signing that has been made under the Redbird management. His numbers at the end of the day truly speak for themselves. I mean, if we just look at the output that he provided Chelsea while he was playing there, you know, his goals and assists with Milan just completely tower over anything that he did with Chelsea. So from an individual standpoint, he's been playing his best football without a doubt. And here's the thing, usually, when you're playing your best football, you also start to have an expectation that the club that you're playing the best football for will notice that and give you a pay raise. And that's essentially where the storyline of Christian's potential departure actually kicks off. See, when he was signed on in the summer of 2023, he was handed a contract by the club for 4 years, till 2027. His salary on that contract was 4 million euros net. He had an excellent first season with the club, picking up over 20 goal contributions. And when he started to perform equally well in the second season, around December of 2024, reports started to come out that Milan was in negotiation with Christian to renew his contract. It was being said that there would potentially be a deal till 2028, maybe even 2029, and the player will see a salary increase from 4 million euros to 5 million euros. So that sounded like it was kind of progressing in the right direction, but then I would say the first crack sort of appeared in January of 2025. This was just a few weeks after Milan lifted their 50th trophy, the Supercoppa Italiana. Christian played a role in that. We all saw Sergi Conceição lighting up the cigars and dancing in the locker room, but just a few weeks after that trophy, on January 31st, some news reports came out that players including Alvaro Morata, Theo Hernandez, and it also included Christian Pulisic in there, weren't too happy with the style of coaching of Conceição. So the club's poor form, coupled with a potentially disgruntled star player in Christian, that could put the entire renewal in jeopardy. But around February 26th, news came out by La Gazzetta dello Sport that Christian was actually on path to actually signing that renewal. They highlighted that the contract was going to be till 2029, and there was potential addition of bonuses this time. So 4 to 5 million euros in salary plus bonuses. A month later, Fabrizio Romano came out and said that, there would be a 4-year renewal, once again matching that 2029 timeline, an increase in salary, and the player came out and said that I'm happy at Milan and he wants to stay. And once again in April as well, the same report. So January, there was a little bit of turbulence, according to at least one report. February looked good, March looked good, April also confirmed the renewal was on track. But May is when things actually derailed. This time around, according to Matteo Moretto, a very reliable journalist in Italy, came out and said that Christian has put his entire plan of renewing with Milan on hold until the player actually gets clarity on the club's football project. Now, you're giving him a longer contract, you're increasing his salary. So financially for the player, there is an incentive to want to renew. But for a player like Christian, he wanted to know what the football future of Milan was going to be as well. And that doubt essentially stemmed from the fact that 2024-25 was a disastrous season for the team. They finished in 8th place. The signings that they made in the summer transfer window were not good at the end of the day. Some of them were not good to the point that they left in December in the winter transfer window. The coach that Christian started the season with was fired in 5 months. The next coach came on. There were reports of him not liking his style of coaching, and then that coach was gone another 4 or 5 months as well. So if the fans were questioning the management and the direction that the club was taking, you can easily tell that players sitting in the locker room, watching these things unfold around them, having inside knowledge, would have some doubts about the project as well. And that is essentially what Matteo Moretto reported, that Pulisic wanted to put any potential renewal talks on hold until he understood what the club was doing from the sporting side. And that possibly included the hiring of what kind of a sporting director the club's going to be bringing in. What kind of a coach is the club going to be bringing in? Now, these doubts were revealed sometime in May, Fast forward to July, that's when came the news of a potential buyer for Christian. Calciomercato reported, La Gazzetta dello Sport reported that Al Nassr, Saudi club Al Nassr, was interested in the player. And with clubs that have such deep pockets, they would be willing to pay what Milan would price Christian at. But these links were then very quickly thwarted. Multiple reports came out that Christian is not looking to make a move away from Milan. He's happy where he is. He's not, obviously, the kind of price tag that Saudi club paid for Matteo Retegui. Just look at Al Nassr and Theo Hernandez. He is getting about a 25 million euro a year salary playing there. He made, 4 million euros at Milan? So Christian would be paid handsomely if he actually went there. But just seeing the fact that he did not want to renew even with a salary increase for a longer term, he wanted to first wait to see the football project, tells you that that's not the kind of player that would actually make a move to Saudi Arabia at this point of his career. So after the seesaw that was last season, after the constant, roadblocks that necessarily came during his renewal talks, and then the potential communication of an interest that came from the Saudi club, after all of that, now the latest reports are suggesting that Pulisic is ready to renew his deal with Milan. He wanted to wait for the sporting project. Maybe he sees a little bit more clarity on that future with the arrival of Iglitare, an experienced sporting director from the league, was with Lazio for 15 years. He then sees the arrival of a 6-time Serie A winning coach in Massimiliano Allegri. We can have question marks about how this particular transfer window is running, but you have to say that from a direction standpoint with Dare and Allegri's arrival, there seems to be a little bit more, let's just say, stability that you can foresee from Milan. So when it comes to the potential departure of Christian, moving away from the club, going to Saudi Arabia, or maybe even any other club, at this point of time, I don't really see that happening. Which brings us to how exactly will the coach be using Pulisic in his system next season? Now, as we talked about in the previous video, Max Allegri is a pragmatic coach. He believes in systems that are, defensively solid. Now, naturally, Pulisic is going to be a key attacking component for the coach next season. And we'll look at, how he might use him in a 4-2-3-1, in a 4-3-3, or maybe even a 3-5-2 sort of formation. Pulisic, with his pace, his dribbling ability, his versatility, he could be used as a somewhat more dynamic winger, but he could also be used as an attacking midfielder playing in that number 10 role right behind the striker. But he will essentially be primarily tasked, irrespective of the actual, specific position that he's playing in, he will be tasked with the responsibility of creating and scoring goals in Allegri's counter-attacking style of play. Now, there are some people that have rightfully probably expressed some concerns that Allegri might use Pulisic to also fulfill some more of those defensive responsibilities, because compared to, all the attackers, if you look at Leao, you look at Santi Jimenez, you look at Christian is by far the most defensively sound player off of those. And he also gives so much effort to the game. He gives so much effort while he's playing that, he would be the one who's willing to make those, runs further back. He will sacrifice himself essentially for the team's cause. Now, his primary position, as we've seen over the past couple seasons, he's going to be playing in that right winger role in that 4-2-3-1 or that 4-3-3 formation. And in that, his role will essentially be to leverage his speed and one-on-one dribbling to, stretch defenses, to create space for his teammates, for the ones who are playing maybe a little bit more centrally, maybe even create a little bit more space for Rafael on the left flank if he pulls the defenders towards his side. But by using his pace and his dribbling ability, he would be able to drag the defenders out and could be a massive asset for a player like Santi Jimenez or, whichever center forward is playing up front. I think amongst his key responsibilities while playing in that role, one would be the link-up play. He will have to combine with central midfielders like Yusuf Fofana, Samuel Ricci, and even the right back. We don't really know at this point in time who the right back is going to be, but whoever's playing on the right flank, maybe Alexis Salamakers or a more defensive-minded right back, he would have to play with him to, overload those wide areas, create some more numerical advantages in that space. The second key responsibility will be that counter-attacking threat. That defense-first focused, style of play under Max will give Milan a lot of opportunities to break on the counter. And again, leveraging that speed and his ability to dribble, that's where that counterattack can become so much more effective. Allegri's system depends on rapid transitions. And Pulisic's ability to carry the ball forward would make him one of those focal points in those quick breaks, especially against those high pressing sides. Then another key responsibility for him will be cutting inside. Now, Christian is one of those unique right wingers that you could say that is a right-footed player, so he can cross the ball in with his right foot, stay further out wide, stretch the defenses, then cross the ball in. But he also is one of those right wingers that has the ability, even though being right-footed, to still be able to play really well with his left foot. He can score goals, he can make solid passes, pick up assists, even with his left foot. One of the books written about him, or it was maybe an autobiography, it was written out that when he was a young kid, his dad actually, along with his coaches, they forced him to practice everything that he could do with his right foot with his left foot. It was a concerted effort that was made to improve his left foot. It just doesn't come naturally. It's something he's actually worked on. So by cutting inside, he can use that foot to take shots. He can deliver incisive passes and, aim to break lines to create those goal scoring opportunities for himself and even for the center forward up top. How he fits into this formation, you could say that in a 4-2-3-1, Pulisic plays as the right-sided attacking midfielder, drifting centrally to support the striker, while in a 4-3-3, he operates more of a traditional winger, hugging the touchline, stretching the play before he eventually, if he does, cut in towards the goal. Now, as, maybe some alternative roles, he could fit in as an attacking midfielder in some of the formations and maybe even a second striker in one of them. So in a 4-2-3-1, Allegri may occasionally position Pulisic more centrally behind the striker as a number 10. He plays that role with Team USA. He has played that role in the past so many times with Milan as well, where his vision and short passes can do a lot to unlock, those compact defenses. This role would probably suit him a little bit better when you're playing against an opposition that, sits a little bit more deep, where his asset maybe of creativity would be a little bit more important than his pace. Then when it comes to playing a second striker, I think in a 3-5-2, he could potentially line up top as a second striker to Santi Jimenez or against Dusan Vlahovic. He could play a role where he's maybe dropping deeper and assisting more with the link-up play. Now, when it comes to his key partnerships under the new coach, I would say one would be Rafael Leao. Pulisic's inward movements from the right complement Leao's direct runs on the left, creating more of a balanced wide threat. Their interplay could, pull defenses apart, move it to one side or the other, and it could also stretch them apart enough that it opens more opportunities for the midfielders. Those midfielders, those progressive guys can exploit those gaps. We saw in his first season how Ruben Loftus-Cheek made the most of that. In his second season, we saw how Tijani Reinders, how many tap-in goals, late runs did he make into the box and score from that. So that balance that Pulisic and Leao offer in, pushing players, in stretching the defense more, could open up spaces for the midfielders to make those runs. And so naturally, another key partnership would be one with his midfielders. Paired with a creative midfielder like Luka Modric, we're not sure exactly where he's going to play, but if we assume that he will be playing, a game a week about 40 to 50 minutes and he will be offering that creativity, Pulisic would benefit from the precise breaking the lines kind of passes that would set him up, because of Modric, as I talked about in the last video, would set Pulisic up to be able to score goals. And again, the new defensive signing of Samuel Ricci, the existing defensive presence of Yusuf Fofana, they do offer Christian, a degree of coverage to be able to, thwart forward more and create those attacking opportunities. And then the third key partnership will be with the fullbacks. Now, naturally, when you're playing as a winger, either side, it doesn't matter on any team, you're arguably one of your most important partners is the fullback that you play with. Is he making the overlap runs? Are you making them? Is he making the underlap runs? These are important elements in a partnership between a winger and a fullback. And as I mentioned already, Pulisic's ability to be able to play with his left foot, allows him to drift inside. So it opens up the opportunity for an overlapping run for the fullback. This could create a dangerous combination on the right flank. And then we come down to those tactical nuances, maybe not the exact tangibles on the field, but even some intangibles. The first one we'd look at in those tactical nuances would be the defensive contribution. The one thing that nobody can debate when it comes to Pulisic is his work rate. And that's exactly what a coach like Max Allegri, with the type of intensity that he himself brings into the game, that's exactly what he demands from his players. Work rate. Pulisic will be expected to track back and support the right back, particularly in that 4-3-3 to maintain that defensive balance. especially if you're playing against a counter-attacking side. Another one would be his set-piece involvement. You know, we saw how many times last season those corner kicks that were whipped in by Christian were deadly. They were lethal. I think there was one of them that went directly into the goal. You know, so his delivery from corner kicks, his delivery from free kicks, they're going to be an important element to how Allegri manages this team. And I think the number one thing that we have to clear up from day one, I'm not sure what was happening under Fonseca or under Conceição. The one thing that has to be cleared up, who is taking the penalty kicks? We don't want any penalty kick drama next season. So that set piece involvement of Christian is going to be a key piece, not just to helping the team win. Obviously, that's the main objective, but even getting more assists, getting more goals for himself. Those stats matter in improving a player's confidence throughout the season. And if we just dive into some of the stats, you know, his fit as from a statistical standpoint, in the 2024-25 season, he had 29 goal contributions, 29 goals and assists in 50 matches played. You know, this highlights his threat as not just a creator, but also as a goal scorer. And Allegri's system that, you know, that demands high efficiency, these are pretty good numbers from Christian. In his first season with Milan, per 90 minutes, he had an XG of 0.28. That improved to 0.44 in his second season. In his first season, his expected assists for a goal was 0.17. That also improved to 0.23. He also had about 2.5 successful dribbles in a game, about 2 key passes made in a match. So those statistical traits of being able to score, get assists, improving his numbers in his XG and XA department, making those dribbles, dishing out those key passes, this is exactly the kind of output that a coach like Allegri is looking for. And so in conclusion, under Allegri, Pulisic is expected to be a cornerstone piece for this team. You know, the coach already talked about how he's going to build this team around Rafael Leao. He's the focal point, but Christian Pulisic is arguably equally so too. And I think his partnership with Leao, with Jimenez, hopefully with Modric, it will amplify his attacking output, while his defensive contributions will make sure that Allegri's defense-first system also maintains that balance. So there you have it, Milanisti. That's a little tactical breakdown of how I think, you know, Allegri will use Pulisic. And when it comes to the player's future with the club, at this point in time, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to stay. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if in the coming weeks, maybe months, he even signs his renewal till 2029. So if you like these tactical breakdown kind of videos, you know, name some of the players in the comment section that you want me to make a video for. If you haven't already, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at FootballKush. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And as always from my side, Forza Milan, grazie mille, ciao tutti. You know, his role there would be to receive the ball from the back line and then, you know, dictate tempo, distribute to the wingers, utilize Pulisic, Leao, and create attacking opportunities essentially from there.